From drug wars to Schedule One, the rise, the fall, and the future of dealer sims.
Okay, let's unpack this. Forget your cozy farm towns and benign city management systems. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the high-stakes, hyper-complex world of drug dealer simulation video games. It's a genre that, maybe surprisingly, has been pushing the boundaries of virtual economics and, supply chain management since way back in the 1980s.
It really is a fascinating niche. I mean, it forces game designers to confront these ultimate questions of risk, reward, logistics, capital accumulation, all that stuff.
Exactly.
And for this particular deep dive, we have a remarkable set of sources, not just historical context, but actually a detailed visionary expansion document for one of the genre's most successful modern titles, Schedule One.
That's right. So our mission today is pure game design analysis. We're essentially dissecting the proposed mechanics here. These were designed to take a successful, street-level simulation and just blow it up into a global, multi-layered criminal enterprise.
Yeah, how do you design a game where legitimate banking, international shipping, darknet transactions, how do they all coexist?
Right. We're looking at the ultimate calculus of digital crime, I suppose, and the kind of immersive philosophy behind it.
Exactly. This is really about understanding the developer's mindset. They aren't just, adding content for the sake of it. They're adding friction and complexity deliberately to increase the stakes. And it forces the player to operate simultaneously as, well, an aggressive entrepreneur, a clandestine logistician, and a disciplined risk manager. Every feature we're going to discuss, it seems designed to solve a specific problem in scaling up a virtual criminal empire.
Okay, sounds good. Let's jump in then. So to really understand the ambition behind this Schedule One expansion, we probably need to look back a bit at the origins of this niche genre. Our sources establish that this simulation style is, well, practically ancient in gaming terms, tracing its lineage back to the very basic economic models established in the original Drug Wars in, 1984?
Yeah, 1984. That game really set the foundational pattern. It was super simple, mostly text-based, the kind of thing you played on school computers or maybe early home PCs. The entire game basically centered on geographical arbitrage.
Buy low, sell high.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Buying inventory cheaply in one digital location, moving it to another where the price was higher, all while dealing with random police encounters and market prices just bouncing all over the place. It was a pure statistical risk simulator, really.
And that model, that core idea, evolved into its spiritual successor, Dope Wars, which hit the scene, I think, early 2000s, often as a free flash game or a simple PC download.
Yeah, Dope Wars definitely solidified the core gameplay loop for a whole generation. You had limited inventory slots, you had to check the current price list across different neighborhoods, maybe take a high-risk loan from a loan shark, constantly dodge the cops.
And the end game was pretty simple back then, right? Just get rich.
Exactly. Accrue a set amount of wealth, and that was basically it. That simple structure, the buy low, sell high arbitrage model, became the blueprint for years. For a long time, the simulation was just about market timing and inventory management, like a high-score game disguised as a logistics sim.
But it had a major limitation, didn't it? Progression.
Yeah, that was the key problem. Once a player had enough cash to just absorb any price fluctuation, the game essentially ended. It became trivial. There was no real challenge left.
Which brings us then to the modern era and the game that seems to have really shifted things. Schedule One, released in 2025. And the sources, well, they heap praise on the developer, Tyler. A massive hats off, they say.
They do.
Really?
And while other simulators existed around that time, the consensus seems to be that Schedule One was just significantly better thought out in its fundamental design.
Okay, but better thought out can mean a lot of things. Can we quantify why? What did it do differently?
Well, thankfully, the sources help us here. They specifically praise Schedule One's endgame, and critically, its cultivation mechanics. This is where it really breaks from that traditional Dope Wars model.
Ah, so not just buying and selling, but producing.
Exactly. Cultivation introduces resource management, time sinks, protecting your resources, a whole manufacturing layer. The player shifts from being just a middleman distributor to a genuine producer. You need land, ingredients, processing facilities.
That sounds way more complex.
It is. And that complexity kept wealthier players engaged. It solved that crucial problem of, okay, I have millions in the bank, now what? Suddenly, capital wasn't the only constraint. Physical resources, time, security, they became just as vital.
And the superior design, well, it had a pretty profound and immediate impact on the competitive landscape, didn't it? Our sources give us this detailed look into the demise of a competing project, Trade-off, initially called Life Decision.
Oh, yeah. This failure is a fantastic case study. It really shows why mechanics matter more than just sheer content volume. Trade-off wasn't some small indie project. It was a serious venture. Development started back in autumn 2022, built in Unreal Engine 5, so pretty high-tech, clearly aiming to be the next-gen Dope Wars.
So they were putting in the work.
Absolutely. The developers built foundational cultivation systems. They had active cops, even an early version of an ATM system to secure cash. They were ticking all the boxes they thought were necessary.
And yet, it failed.
Completely. After Schedule 1 launched in 2025, Trade-off was immediately declared obsolete. Just like that. The core reason given in the source material is pretty stark. Schedule 1's endgame and cultivation mechanics far surpassed what the Trade-off team had managed.
Wow.
They basically concluded there was just no point releasing a product that was already second best on the most critical progression features.
The scale of that abandonment, it's kind of staggering when you think about the work involved.
It really is. And it illustrates the brutal economics of game development. The sources reveal that the core development period for Trade-off lasted about a year, during which the team created 40 unique locations. Think about the modeling, the texture, and the asset creation for 40 distinct places.
That's a huge amount of environmental art alone.
Right. And, incredibly, 250 side quests, designed to deepen the narrative, give the player things to do.
250, that's easily thousands of lines of dialogue, months, maybe years of writing and coding effort.
Absolutely. And that entire reservoir of content, all those environments, all those narrative hooks, designed to keep the player invested, instantly invalidated.
Just because the core loop wasn't as good?
Precisely. Because the core loop of Schedule 1, how you progress, how you manage wealth on a macro scale, was fundamentally better engineered. The lesson for us, and maybe for you listening, is that in simulation design, a flawless core progression mechanic, one that rewards long-term planning, that triumphs over sheer volume of localized content every single time. Schedule 1 solved the production and endgame problem better, and Trade-off, well, it died because of it.
It's really the ultimate example, isn't it? How technical innovation in the core simulation can just render years of asset creation completely irrelevant overnight. Okay, so moving on from that history of, well, failure and success, let's look at the future vision. This expansion document for Schedule 1 seems entirely focused on scaling the player's operation way past the local city limits.
Yeah, it's all about going global.
And to do this, the sources identify some crucial missing infrastructure, things that must be added to facilitate global trade. We're talking the airport, the port, the train station, and the subway.
And logically, if you have increased risk enforcement, you also need a functional prison. That's mentioned too.
Right. These aren't just, background scenery. They're operational hubs, right?
Exactly. They introduce layers of international logistical complexity. They represent choke points in the supply chain. If the player is serious about transitioning from selling like grams on the street corner to moving metric tons internationally, well, they need serious infrastructure access.
Let's maybe focus on the airport first. It's defined as a multifunction hub. What specific mechanical uses does the design doc outline for it?
Okay, the airport seems to serve two primary critical functions according to the sources. First, it's the player's gateway for personal international travel.
Okay, so flying yourself places.
Right. If you want to source product directly, say, travel to Morocco for hashish, or maybe South America for precursor materials, you need the airport. This ties the physical location, the airport in your home city, directly to these new international settings, which means the player has to navigate the risks of international border control personally.
Okay, makes sense. And the second function, that would be the bulk trade, I assume.
Precisely. The airport is also a critical reception point for illicit goods and general cargo deliveries. It operates similarly, it seems, to the port and the train station in this regard. When you order bulk volume from overseas, you have to arrange for its arrival at one of these legitimate, highly surveilled locations.
Which immediately introduces a whole new layer of risks.
Scotty.
Customs.
Yeah, the customs risk layer. How do you bypass airport security? How do you smuggle massive amounts of cargo out of a restricted zone without drawing attention? The airport forces the player to apply infiltration, stealth skills, maybe bribery, all applied to what is fundamentally an economic transaction.
And this scaling, this need for airports and ports, it's driven by the proposed international sourcing layer, right? The sources detail this new jungle or maybe South American setting. This sounds like the ultimate move, going from distributor to like an industrialist. This is where the player would first cultivate coca, controlling the raw material supply chain right from the start.
Yeah, the jungle setting sounds fascinating because it introduces these high-risk environmental dynamics. It gets the player way out of their familiar urban comfort zone. You'd have to secure a plantation, manage local staff presumably, protect the crop from, I don't know, pests or weather, or maybe rival growers.
And once the raw material is processed, then comes the critical step, transportation, getting that highly valuable product from this remote, probably hostile environment back to your main operational zone.
Right. And the sources detail a really sophisticated, highly granular transport mechanic for shipping that product back. It's not just click button, receive goods. The player is presented with 4 distinct cargo options:
Right.
train, ship, airplane, or the highly clandestine submarine.
4 options. Okay, let's break those down. This sounds like where the game design gets really interesting with risk versus reward.
Absolutely. This is where the game design truly shines in applying that classic risk-reward triangle: time, volume, and seizure risk. We can sort of analyze the implied calibration for each option based on what they are.
Okay, so airplane.
Airplane transport, well, that's got to be the fastest option, right? Time is minimized, but the volume is likely limited. You can only fit so much on a plane, and the seizure risk, given the high scrutiny on air cargo, that would presumably be dramatically higher.
So faster delivery means less time exposed to market fluctuations maybe, but a much higher chance of losing everything.
That seems logical. Then, conversely, you have the ship. That's likely the slowest option. Could take weeks, maybe even months in game time.
Maximum exposure to price volatility then.
Definitely. But the volume capacity would be massive. Think shipping containers. And the physical security for a large cargo container once it's on the ship is pretty high. So the detection risk might be potentially lower if you can handle the logistics at the port end, getting it off the ship and out of the port undetected.
Okay, so 2 extremes. Fast and risky, slow and bulky. What about the other 2? Train and submarine?
So the train probably offers a middle ground, maybe moderate volume, moderate time. But it relies on complex rail networks, maybe border crossings. And you've got station security to manage at both ends. Different kind of logistical puzzle.
And the submarine, that sounds exotic.
The submarine option, yeah, this sounds like the true high-stakes, high-volume, highly clandestine route. The ultimate stealth delivery. It implies immense upfront costs, right, for the vessel itself or maybe hiring the service. And the delivery time would likely be lengthy, but the seizure risk, that might be the absolute lowest, given its underwater path.
Rewarding the patient player, the one willing to invest maximum capital and time for maximum security.
Yeah, it feels like that. So the player isn't just choosing a delivery method. They're choosing an entire economic risk portfolio with each shipment.
Exactly. It's a strategic decision every time. And if we follow this logic, this scaling to its absolute extreme, the expansion document proposes the absolute pinnacle of this transport chain, the ultimate delivery goal, which kind of transcends realism a bit. It becomes symbolic of immense wealth, the space station.
Yeah. The space station.
No, wait. Isn't delivering narcotics to a space station maybe slightly immersion breaking? Given all the focus on realistic logistics via ports and subs, how do the sources justify this enormous leap?
That's a really crucial question. And the answer seems to be that the space station isn't about realism in the same way. It's about symbolizing ultimate, maybe hyper-capitalist success, and mechanically providing a necessary endgame wealth sink, a place to spend ridiculous money.
Ah, okay, so it's gated.
Very much so. To unlock this, the sources specify you need to shell out a huge cost for the license and then for the flight itself. This acts as a massive gatekeeper. Only players who have truly mastered the global logistics of trains, ships, and airplanes will have the kind of capital necessary to even attempt this.
So it's the final economic hurdle, proof that you can purchase access to literally any market, no matter how insane the infrastructure required.
Precisely. The sources describe the payoff as fun, which is interesting and, most importantly, highly profitable. Mechanically, the space station probably represents a market with infinite demand and zero immediate competition, maybe zero cops. It guarantees the highest possible profit margins. It's the final impossible market you conquer. The crown jewel proving you've basically transcended earthly jurisdiction and economic constraints.
Wow. That art, I mean, from managing a tiny inventory in a backpack, maybe dodging cops on a bicycle, to running a global network involving submarines and eventually securing a private launch license to sell stuff in orbit. That really defines the aspirational complexity of this simulation design. Okay, so moving global amounts of product obviously means dealing with global amounts of cash. Once a player is dealing in, millions, Physical currency becomes this massive self-incriminating liability.
Yeah, you can't just stash it all under the mattress anymore.
So the expansion document addresses this necessity with a critical legitimate financial layer, the bank and the ATM network.
Right. And this system introduces essential economic friction. It's not just a convenience. Players apparently must open a bank account simply to gain the convenience of using the ATM network spread across the city. But the real mechanical brilliance, I think, lies in the penalty loop.
Okay, how so?
The sources make it really clear. Players must transfer money to their bank account after every major deal. It's not optional if you want to be safe.
While the imperative, what's the risk?
Seizure. If cops catch you during a random search, or if you get arrested with physical illegal cash on you, it's immediately confiscated, gone.
Ah, okay.
So every single successful high-volume deal forces the player into this immediate high-stakes time management dilemma. Do I drop everything and immediately drive across the map to a bank branch or an ATM to secure this wealth? Or do I press my luck, try to fit in maybe one more deal, knowing that carrying this immense pile of physical money is an absolute liability and makes you a huge target?
So it transforms the bank from just being, a place to store money into a compulsory risk mitigation tool. It forces the player to prioritize wealth security over, say, operational speed or efficiency.
Exactly. It's a really elegant solution to the problem of cash hoarding in large-scale simulations like this. The system rewards discipline and planning, and it punishes greed and haste.
Makes sense. Now, even with bank accounts, the player still faces the massive problem of money laundering, right? Drug money is concentrated, often highly suspicious in volume.
Absolutely. $1 million in small, used bills from drug sales looks very different from $1 million earned legitimately.
So how do the sources address this?
They address this by introducing a secondary, probably lower-risk economy based on something called healerware, which sounds like, stolen goods, TVs, radios, electronics, that sort of thing.
Okay, sounds like a classic criminal trope, fencing stolen goods. But what's its mechanical function in the game design? Why add this whole other system?
The function seems to be about volume and normalization. Drug profits are high margin, but maybe relatively low volume compared to the cash value. Money laundering requires high volume, plausibly sourced transactions to normalize the cash flow, make it look legitimate.
Ah, I see.
Healerware provides this necessary economic subsystem. The player generates plausible-looking revenue by trading in these non-drug goods, which makes it easier to funnel the concentrated drug money into the legitimate banking system without immediately triggering red flags or suspicion.
So it's basically a required intermediate step to clean the cash flow before it hits the bank account. Where does the player actually get this healerware?
The design doc outlines 3 key sourcing locations, and each likely represents a different risk-reward profile. You got the lower risk, maybe lower volume spots like the scrapyard, probably find some discarded stuff there, and standard electronic store warehouses, maybe break-ins or nighttime raids. But for true bulk acquisition, for really moving volume, you need to access the highly restricted cargo zone of the airport.
Ah, tying it back to the global logistics hubs again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting high-value electronics or whatever out of the airport cargo zone would require stealth, maybe forged credentials, possibly even violence. So the immediate risk goes way up, but the potential volume for laundering is much greater.
And just like the drug trade, I assume you can't just sell this healerware anywhere. You need specific buyers.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. The mechanic requires the existence of specific locations designed explicitly for selling these stolen items. Shady pawn shops, underground markets, maybe specific NPC contacts who act as fences. This ensures that the entire process, sourcing the goods, moving them, and then selling them, operates as a complete economic loop. It allows players to diversify income streams, create plausible cash flows on paper, and effectively mitigate the financial seizure risk of their primary drug income. It's a whole secondary system, really, dedicated to servicing the cash management problem of the main drug economy.
Okay, that's quite intricate. Now, let's step beyond physical assets, physical cash, stolen TVs, into the digital realm. This seems like the ultimate frontier for illicit wealth these days. The data center and the darknet. This is how the simulation updates digital crime for the 21st century, I guess.
Yeah, this is where it gets really modern. The data center isn't just like a building you click on. It's the physical infrastructure foundation for all the high-tech criminal operations. Primarily, its basic function is providing necessary, fast internet access, which you'd probably need for complex operations. But the design document incorporates this really fantastic internal logic loop.
Okay.
The darknet, which is where the player conducts their high-anonymity online business, maybe buying supplies, maybe selling product directly to certain clients, is hosted on the very servers physically located within the player's data center.
Oh, interesting. So if you control the data center infrastructure, you control your anonymity, but you also create a single massive point of failure.
Exactly. That's the crucial vulnerability. If the cops somehow manage to locate and raid the data center, which is a physical location in the game world, they could potentially compromise the player's entire digital anonymity. They could shut down your servers, disrupt your darknet operation completely. It forces the player to protect their digital operations with physical security measures around the data center. It integrates the two realms beautifully.
Right. You can't just hide behind a screen. Your digital footprint has a physical anchor point. And once that infrastructure is established, what digital abilities are unlocked? What can you actually do with it?
Well, the data center provides the necessary computing power for more advanced digital crime. Sources mentioned the player can engage in hacking, which likely opens up new types of side quests, maybe stealing data, corporate espionage, messing with rival systems, information acquisition, lots of possibilities there. And crucially, it also enables cryptocurrency mining.
Ah, of course. Cryptocurrency mining in a drug simulation. That sounds like the absolute perfect, high-level, maybe passive income stream for a virtual drug lord.
It really does. Once the player has amassed immense starting capital, maybe from their global drug sales, maybe from Healware, they can invest that cash into server racks, cooling systems, power, all the infrastructure the data center needed to begin mining. This feels very much like an endgame mechanic, designed to generate wealth more passively without the constant high-risk physical exposure of street-level or even international drug dealing. It transforms the player into a truly diversified criminal entrepreneur. You're managing physical narcotics, stolen physical assets, and sophisticated digital currency manipulation. Success means exploiting weaknesses across all three economic vectors simultaneously.
Okay, we've covered the really big picture stuff, global transport, high finance, digital crime. Let's maybe pivot back to the ground level now, looking at the immediate sort of boots on the ground risks and maybe unexpected rewards embedded within the local game world. Starting with the somewhat surprising inclusion of this rural survival layer, the rural retreat, which the sources just call the land.
Yeah, the land. This is a pretty clever design move, I think, because it introduces a complete resource management system that's entirely separate from the urban drug trade. The land seems primarily used for ingredient sourcing, stuff that's necessary for cooking in the game.
Cooking, okay, so that implies.
Right. It forces the player to manage resource scarcity, engage in gathering, or maybe even hunting, finding fresh inventory like eggs, vegetables, meat directly from the environment itself.
So this feeds into proposed cooking mechanics then, which must imply some sort of player maintenance system, like hunger or stamina.
Precisely. The ability to cook or grill diverse dishes. The sources mention everything from simple roasted meat to hamburgers, strongly suggests the implementation of a pretty sophisticated stamina, health, or maybe hunger system. This mechanic acts as a necessary resource sink, right? And a maintenance task. It ensures that even a super wealthy player still has to manage their basic human needs. You can't just ignore eating. And it pulls the player out of the constant financial stress of the city for a bit, forces them to manage, primal survival, which ironically could actually serve as a kind of pressure release valve from the high-intensity logistics of the drug trade, a change of pace.
Makes sense. But the rural setting isn't entirely peaceful, is it? The sources note a very specific, unique environmental hazard out there.
That's right. Apparently, players must flee from wolves in the countryside.
Wolves. Okay.
It's a brilliant localized threat, I think. It's non-law enforcement danger. It ensures that the resource gathering loop isn't just trivial busy work. You might be out there trying to gather ingredients for a hamburger, but you're still in danger, albeit a natural animalistic danger rather than a legal one from the cops.
Yeah.
It just reminds the player that no matter where they are in this game world, risk is inherent. You're never totally safe.
Okay, returning to the urban environment then, let's look at the social spaces. These seem to offer potentially immense profit multipliers, but presumably come with their own risks, the club and the annual festival.
Yeah, these social venues seem designed to reward players who can operate effectively under acute pressure. In crowded spaces, the club functions as, well, a meeting spot maybe, but critically, as a high-volume dealing location. And the core mechanical benefit seems to be a profit multiplier. Sale prices inside the club are significantly higher than standard street prices, which leads to dramatically increased profits per sale.
But why are prices higher? Simple supply and demand in a closed environment? Or is the risk higher too?
I suspect the risk is much higher. You're dealing in a crowded, controlled, often guarded environment. Maybe there are bouncers, maybe undercover cops are more likely.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, a deal gets spotted, a fight breaks out, you're probably trapped. The exits might be blocked. It increases the probability of a high inventory loss or getting arrested in a place you can't easily escape.
So it rewards stealth, maybe quick thinking, the ability to operate under pressure in a public setting, small scale, high intensity risk.
Exactly. That feels right. Then you have the mega scale event, the annual festival.
The annual sales bonanza, basically.
Pretty much. This sounds like a predictable, massive sales opportunity that's actually coded into the game's calendar. It happens regularly. When the sources declare, you know what that means, regarding the huge crowds at the festival, well, it means temporary, guaranteed immense demand for your product.
Like Black Friday for drug dealers.
Basically, yeah. The festival is the drug simulation equivalent of a retail giant's holiday rush. It offers the potential for maximum short-term cash flow. You could probably make a fortune in just a few in-game days. But the risk exposure, due to the sheer volume of transactions happening, plus the likely influx of temporary, heavy law enforcement presence, that would probably be at an annual peak too.
So the player has to make a big strategic choice. Do I commit maximum inventory, maybe hire extra crew, and go all in for that short, massive payout, knowing the risk is also maxed out?
Exactly. High risk, potentially massive reward, concentrated in a short time window.
Okay. So inevitably, with all this high-risk activity, global shipping, dealing in clubs, dodging wolves, selling at festivals eventually, things will go wrong. Which leads us to the inevitable failure state. The penal system, defined by cops and the prison. What's the immediate consequence loop here? What happens when you get caught?
The penalty has to be swift and absolute to really work as a deterrent in a game like this. Getting caught by cops while possessing illegal inventory, whether that's cash you haven't banked or actual product, results in immediate incarceration in the prison. And, most critically, the confiscation of all illegal goods you're carrying at that moment.
Ouch. That sounds game-changing.
It absolutely is. It's potentially a total and immediate inventory reset, a massive financial loss, and a temporary halt to all income while the player serves time in prison. The prison mechanic itself likely introduces new challenges too, maybe mini-games to reduce sentence, maybe interactions with other inmates, maybe risks inside prison, ensuring that the time served isn't just passively waiting.
Okay, given those absolutely catastrophic stakes, losing everything you're carrying, the designers apparently had to include one ultimate desperate risk mitigation tactic, and this is where the details become, well, unique to the genre, let's say. The use of two specific concealed inventory slots. Specifically, the two slots in your pill.
Yeah, that specific visceral mechanic, it operationalizes the highest stakes risk decision in the game right before potential capture. These two hidden slots are the ultimate insurance policy. They allow the player, maybe right before a high-risk deal or if they think a police encounter is imminent, to select two critical items and only two that are safe from confiscation during a search or arrest.
Only two items. And the sources really emphasize the stakes here, describing these two slots as sometimes meaning everything or nothing.
It's pure psychological game design, isn't it?
Yeah.
It forces this moment of pre-search terror almost. The player must prioritize. What do you hide? Do I hide a single super high concentration batch of the most valuable product? Do I hide the last remaining stack of physical cash I need to make bail or restart? Do I hide the key to my main safe house or maybe the login to my crypto wallet?
The choice is entirely contextual, highly emotional, probably.
Absolutely. It dictates whether the arrest is merely a costly inconvenience or a truly catastrophic loss that sets the player back hours, days, maybe even weeks of game time. It reinforces this core idea that in this world, even the smallest, most desperate tactical decision can have maximum consequences. Everything is on the line.
Wow. That attention to granular detail, making two specific hidden slots, potentially the defining factor between success and utter failure, that's what elevates this from just being a simple game to a deeply punishing, maybe even stressful simulation. Hashtag tag outro.
So, yeah, bringing all of these different threads together, the expansion proposed for Schedule 1 represents an incredibly ambitious leap in simulation design. It's really quite something. It takes that proven, older arbitrage model and integrates it into this complex, multi-layered system, a system that demands proficiency in, well, global logistics, both legitimate and illegitimate finance, digital security, and even basic survival stuff like cooking and avoiding wolves.
We've seen how seamlessly these systems seem designed to integrate. You've got the bank forcing active risk management, the space station providing this ultimate, almost absurd wealth aspiration, the healerware system solving the money volume and laundering problem, and the data center anchoring digital anonymity to a real physical location you have to protect.
Right. All of this complexity is clearly designed to create a deeply immersive, maybe even all-consuming experience for the player.
And we have to remember the lessons learned from the project that didn't make it that abandoned trade-off game. The sheer scale of the resources lost, their 40 locations, 250 side quests, all that work demonstrates the intense ambition in this design space. But it also really underscores that complexity and innovation in the core economic and progression mechanics, like Schedule 1's cultivation and endgame, that's what truly drives success and player retention, not just the sheer volume of content.
That's a key takeaway, I think.
It really makes you look at the core mechanics of a game like this and maybe question the implied worldview it presents to the player. We focus entirely on player agency, profit maximization, working within the game's boundaries to win.
Absolutely. And consider that central financial mechanic again, the bank. The game explicitly requires the player to use a legitimate bank account specifically to prevent police seizure of their illicit cash.
So you're using the infrastructure designed for law-abiding citizens, the banking system itself, as a shield against the state, against the cops in the game.
Precisely. The path to ultimate success in this simulation isn't defined by avoiding the legal systems entirely, but by successfully identifying and exploiting the vulnerabilities within those very systems.
The game, then, rewards behaving like a kind of hyper-capitalist who just disregards all legal constraints. Using high-tech infrastructure, legitimate finance, everything available simply to profit and thrive outside of any moral or legal boundaries set by the game's society.
That seems to be the path it lays out. So how does a game that incentivizes this level of global high-risk economic behavior, from managing cash flow, using stolen goods, all the way up to securing delivery licenses for a space station, how does that reflect maybe the modern pursuit of extreme wealth? And what is the necessity of hiding your success from the very institutions that govern that wealth? What does that communicate about the ultimate goal of capital accumulation today?
Something to consider, perhaps, as you reflect on this high-stakes digital economy we've just explored.
If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to leave a like. And if you don't want to miss anything, make sure to hit that subscribe button.